All right, let's jump right into a really high-stakes moment for the early church. We're talking about a point where its biggest, most dangerous challenge wasn't coming from the outside world, from Roman persecution or anything like that. No. The threat was actually brewing right there inside its own ranks.
I mean, think about that for a second. What do you do when the call is coming from inside the house? Because that is the exact situation the Apostle Paul and the leadership in Jerusalem found themselves in. It's a story about a mission on the verge of being completely torn apart from the inside out.
So, let's set the scene here. The Apostle Paul, he's just wrapped up this incredibly successful missionary journey. He arrives in Jerusalem, which is kind of like the headquarters for the early church, and he's there to meet with the top leaders, James, who is actually Jesus' brother, and all the elders. You can just imagine the air is thick with anticipation.
And at first, everything goes just perfectly. Paul gives this detailed report of everything God had been doing through his ministry among the Gentiles, the non-Jewish world. We're talking people finding faith, new churches popping up, and the response from James and the elders, just pure joy. They're praising God. It's this beautiful moment of shared celebration for their shared mission. And then, just like that, the entire mood in the room just shifts. All the celebration, the joy, it just evaporates. And it's replaced by this deep, urgent concern that's about to overshadow all the incredible news Paul just delivered. See, the problem wasn't some abstract theological debate they were having. It was a crisis of misinformation. A really dangerous rumor was spreading like wildfire among their own people, and it was threatening to split the church right down the middle.
And we are not talking about a small little group of disgruntled people here. The Greek word used is myriads, which literally means tens of thousands. So you've got thousands of Jewish believers in Jerusalem, people who were really passionate about their heritage, who had all heard this rumor. The scale of the potential division was just massive.
And here it is. This is the heart of the lie. The rumor going around was that Paul was telling Jewish believers to completely abandon their own culture, to stop circumcising their children, to forget the customs of Moses, basically the entire foundation of their identity. It was a total distortion of his message, and it was twisted into a personal attack on him. And that's why this situation was so incredibly dangerous. External opposition, like persecution, it often makes a group stronger, right? It unifies them against a common enemy. But internal division, that can absolutely shatter a movement from the inside. It threatened the very unity they needed for their core mission, what they called the Great Commission, to even have a chance. A team that's fighting itself just can't win.
But what happens next? Well, it's a total masterclass in wise, strategic leadership. Instead of panicking or pointing fingers, James and the elders, they immediately pivot to a solution. They get how serious this is, and they come up with a concrete plan to prove the rumors are just flat out wrong. Their plan was so smart because it was practical, it was public, and it was powerful. They told Paul, okay, here's what you're going to do. First, find 4 men who've taken a religious vow. Second, you're going to join them in their purification ceremony. And third, you're going to pay for their expenses to complete that vow. It was a clear, visible action designed to completely diffuse a verbal lie.
Now, to really get the genius of this, you have to understand this Nazirite vow. This was a really well-known and respected Jewish tradition for anyone who wanted to show a special dedication to God. So, by having Paul, the apostle to the non-Jewish world, publicly participate in and even pay for this deeply Jewish ritual, well, that would send a message that was impossible to ignore.
The whole point wasn't about Paul needing to follow this law to be right with God. He never taught that. Not at all. The goal was to publicly show his respect for his Jewish heritage and prove to thousands of people watching that the rumors about him were completely and totally false. It was a strategic move to preserve unity for the sake of the mission.
Okay, so this is the pivotal moment. I mean, really think about it. Is Paul, the guy who fiercely defended freedom from the law for Gentiles, is he really going to agree to participate in this very Jewish ritual? Everything is hanging on his answer.
And his decision is just profound. This was not Paul compromising his core beliefs. It was an act of what you could call strategic humility. He chose to set aside his own personal rights and cultural preferences for the greater good of the mission and the unity of the church.
And you know what? This action lines up perfectly with his own philosophy. He'd already written that he would adapt his methods, he would accommodate different cultures, becoming all things to all people, not to water down his message, but to remove any unnecessary barrier that might stop people from hearing it.
And get this, he acts immediately. There's no debate, there's no hesitation. The very next day, Paul takes the men, he begins the purification process right alongside them, and he goes to the temple to make it all official. His quick action just screamed louder than any words ever could that he was all in on healing this division.
So why does this ancient story about internal church politics matter to us today? Well, because the principles of how they handled this crisis are absolutely timeless. They offer some incredibly powerful lessons for any group, any organization, or any community that's trying to accomplish a mission together.
So what can we really take away from this? Well, the lessons are pretty clear. Real success demands humility. True teamwork means we have to respect the deeply held convictions of other people in our group. And when misinformation threatens to tear everything apart, you don't just fight it with more words. You have to counter it with swift, decisive, and truthful action. You simply cannot let conflict fester.
Ultimately, what this whole story proves is that any great mission, whether it's from 2,000 years ago or it's one we're on today, requires a unified team. It thrives in harmony, and it's crippled by division. And that makes the hard work of pursuing unity not just some nice idea, but an absolutely essential task. And that really leaves all of us with a challenging question to think about. When our own projects, our teams, our communities are being threatened by internal conflict and misunderstanding, are we willing to follow this example? Are we willing to choose strategic humility in order to preserve the mission?